Hey, hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Chastity. Here we talk about beauty, entertainment, celebrities, books, movies, anime, TV shows, and kind of anything else that garners my attention this week. So before we get into today's video, I have an announcement. After some deliberation and seeing some interest in my comment sections, I have finally made a Patreon. Over there, I'll be allowing my patrons early access to my YouTube videos as well as Patreon exclusive videos. That includes videos that I deem too controversial to talk about here over on YouTube, or videos I feel are too personal. That's why I haven't really done any story times over on here, just because I don't feel comfortable sharing so much on YouTube. But I do feel much more comfortable sharing that type of content with my patrons, as well allow some of my patrons the ability to give me topics and video ideas that they would like to see me make, and then they get the final decision of whether or not those videos stay Patreon exclusive or I post them over here on my YouTube channel. And I'll also be doing live streams over on my Patreon as well. I am going to eventually start doing lives on YouTube, but I would kind of like the idea of doing my first couple lives over on Patreon. So if you want to be a part of me and this new journey, check me out on Patreon at Kickback Next Door. So about a week or two ago, I talked about my community tab about starting a series on my channel called Nostalgia Watch/Reads. Basically, I go back to nostalgic media from when I was about a tween, that 10 to about 14-year age range, and look back at books, movies, and TV shows of that time that I loved and were definitely huge parts of my personality, and seeing whether or not they even hold up still. Do I still feel the same ways I did about those books, movies, and shows I did then and now? And kind of looking at it and seeing whether or not this was good for someone my age to be watching, reading, whatever. Because children's media is so impactful in the type of person you are at a young age, and it very much so does influence children. So it's really important to look back to see was I being influenced by the right things, or was I being influenced by the wrong things? House of Night series, we get into you later. So for this week, the nostalgic media I'll be looking back at is the Daniel X series. So I have all 6 of the Daniel X books, plus I have 2 of the graphic novels that we're not really going to get into today, because the graphic novels are just the retelling of the books in graphic novel form. But yes, I read all 6 of these books in about a week, which super proud of myself. I have not been able to do something like that since middle school, so it was nice to kind of get back into that time in my life where I was consuming books left and right. I was going through series after series after series at that age. So the Daniel X series is about 15-year-old Daniel, and we're following him about 12 years after the murder of his parents. His parents were murdered by the hands of the Prayer, aka number 1 on the list. Now, the list is basically a comprehensive database of all the big bad aliens in our galaxy, and the Prayer desperately wanted to get his hands on it. Now, Daniel's parents were entrusted with the list because they came down to Earth from their home planet to be Earth's defenders, and while trying to protect Earth in the list, they were then subsequently murdered by the Prayer, but Daniel was able to escape. Now, like I mentioned, Daniel is no ordinary kid. He is an alien himself, and following the deaths of his parents, he has decided that he is going to be Earth's new defender. Along with being an alien, Daniel has a lot of abilities and skills that aid him in alien hunting. One of them is his ability to create anything from his mind. As long as he has a comprehensive idea of how that thing works, he can create it and bring it into our world, and it be just as real as you and me. So continuing on with that ability, he's able to conjure up people. So he recreates his mom and dad, as well as his best friends, Will, Joe, Emma, and Dana. Now, these people that he creates are real for intensive purposes. You and I could speak and interact with them. They're also able to be injured and it seems like possibly even be killed, and are as autonomous as something created from someone's imagination could be. Because there are definitely places in this series where Daniel and his friends and his parents argue and they don't agree with Daniel and they have their own thoughts, opinions, very separate of Daniel's. So that is very interesting to have these basic like figments of his imaginations be as real as you and me. Daniel also has the ability to read people's minds and also influence people's thoughts and behaviors just by just thinking about it, which I think is really cool. Daniel also is extremely smart, and that is how he's able to conjure all these things and fully understand the concepts of them is through reading. His brain is almost like a human Wikipedia filled with information, and that aids him in his ability to conjure up things. But there's also a drawback that he's only able to create if he is of clear mind and body, and he's a 15-year-old boy. He ain't never got a clear mind and body all the time. Now, there is ability that Daniel actually develops through the books, and it's the ability to time travel, which I actually thought was super cool, and I really enjoyed how they used it, and him discovering the ability and talking about the fact that like it's almost destiny that Daniel was born, because his mother and father on their home planet were probably two of the most strongest of their kind had ever seen. You know, because the ability to like read minds and influence thoughts is not just the average skill that everyone from Daniel's planet could do, but his parents can do it. And then they came together almost by destiny to make Daniel, who is probably one of the most powerful aliens in the galaxy. And with that comes the ability to time travel and to go back and forth in time from the future to the present. And I enjoy the fact that like he's not perfect at it. So once we realize he can time travel, he doesn't manipulate that skill in every single book. It's something that happens every once in a while, but outside of the book that deals with it, it's in the third book, Demons and Druids, where like time traveling is actually necessary for him to beat the bad guy of the book, versus in the other books they're used to help him gather information he needs, but the time traveling is not essential for defeating the bad guy, which I like that, because time traveling can be a little bit OP, you know, and it's just, I enjoyed that like it was used sparingly. So in each of the first 5 books in the series, Daniel is fighting different alien bad guys from the top 10 list, and then the last book he's fighting the Prayer #1, the guy that killed his parents. I really enjoyed rereading this series. I had a lot of fun. They're a quick read. Like I said, I read all 6 books in like 1 week. Each book minus the third one is a little over 200 pages. I think the third book is closer to 300, but they're definitely not super long books. They're fun. Again, I am curious about like what made young Chastity pick up these books, just because like at that time I was reading like House of Night series and Vampire Academy and like Twilight and like Vampire Diaries, and series that were very much so geared towards girls. Like those were the girl books, quote unquote. And like I was super into those, and like the Daniel X series is such a like divergent from all of the books I was reading at that time. Like this was definitely a book that like I probably would have read because school made me, and then ended up really liking them, but wouldn't have gone out of my way to pick up this series. So I don't really remember like what drew me to this, because I own the first 2 books. Like these 2 were already in my collection, and then like my friend bought me the rest of the series as a birthday gift. Love you, Jessica. But I don't really I'm happy I read these books as young kid, and I'm even more happier now to have reread them. But I don't understand how did I get here. It could be because these are written by James Patterson, and I feel like when it comes to young adult books, we all have a favorite James Patterson series because he's really good, in my opinion, for making books for children in that age range. Although I really did love this book, I do have one small gripe, and that's because in the first 20 to 30 pages of this book, it's just exposition explaining the whole plot over and over again in every single book. And it gets kind of annoying when you're reading the books one after another, being fed the exact same information you just read a book ago. And I fully understand why it's written like this, because at the time the books were coming out with a year or two in between each other, so it is important to remind the readers about the overarching plot of the series. I get that. Also, it makes it good for if, let's say, I'm walking and I just randomly pick up this book, having no idea that it is part of a whole series. I just grab book 4 out of nowhere and I start reading it. Having 20 to 30 pages kind of explaining to me the overarching plot does make sense. So I get it, right? I get it. But it does make it kind of annoying when you're trying to read the entire series in one go, because it's to you, the reader who's reading it this in that way, it gets kind of annoying, because it's I know these things already. I know these things. You don't have to force feed me exposition for 30 pages, but I fully understand why it's like that. But it's not fun when you're reading the books in succession. That does get a little irritating and annoying, and I would find myself just skimming through those pages, because that was information that I had already knew and I didn't need retold to me. But I fully understand why they're written like that, for the reasons of refreshing readers, and so if you randomly pick up a book, you just know what's happening. So my favorite book of the series, like I mentioned earlier, is book 4, Game Over. And this is not my favorite book because it's the best written book. If we're being honest, the best written book is Demons and Druids, and that one is co-written by someone different. Each book pretty much is co-written by different people. The first book is co-written by Michael Ledwidge, and this, in my opinion, might be one of the worst written books of the series. That and the books that Chris Garbenstein wrote. I don't like the way Chris Garbenstein writes. Whatever he contributed to the last 2 books, fire him, never work with him again. If we're being honest, Demons and Druids, co-written by Adam Sadler, this is probably the best written book of the series, but it's not my favorite. But it's written much better, way much better. But my favorite, not because of writing, but because of the story and a specific character, makes Game Over the best book in the series, in my opinion. So book 4, Game Over, is about the aliens numbers 7 and 8, a husband and wife duo who are using their massive video game empire to control the minds of kids. As well as the video game mind control aspects of the book, numbers 7 and 8 have a penchant for hunting endangered intergalactic species. They think it's fun to kill them and then eat them. And on their list next is Daniel himself, because he's one of the last of his alien race. Now, what really makes this book is number 7 and 8's son, Kildar. What an unfortunate name for that young boy. That kid is probably one of my favorite characters of this entire series. Because like Daniel has his like imaginary friends, we don't really get to see him interact with other people a lot or other aliens that aren't hostile. So Kildar was very interesting because he was an alien, but he was nothing like his parents, and he wanted no parts of what his parents wanted to do. He just simply wanted to love his bugs and go to school. And this book is probably the most heartbreaking because Kildar doesn't make it, and he sacrifices his life in order to save the world. You know, he's fully, because of the type of alien that Kildar and his family are, the adults are necessary to keep the children alive until children reach maturity and they're able to survive on their own. The parents die, he dies. And Kildar was very aware of that, but that did not stop him from working with Daniel to stop his parents, which led to his and his parents' death. And that's another thing I really like about the Daniel X series, because it's made for children, but like it tackles the conversation of death, of grieving, and they don't baby kids. Like some serious shit does happen in these books, and like there's a lot of stakes in these books. So I really do like the fact that they handled it so well, and I like that they did that. And when Kildar died, I like put the book down. I couldn't believe it, because one, I didn't think they'd kill a child like in this book. Like I really didn't think they would do that. So the whole scene of his death, I was just like, oh wait, are we serious in these books? I really didn't think that was gonna happen, because we've seen like the aliens, like the adult aliens, have died some very brutal deaths in this book. Like in the first book, Daniel had crawled into the ear of one of these like aliens, and then like, because I think I forgot to mention this, Daniel has the ability to shapeshift, and so he crawled into this dude's ear as a bug and then turned into a giraffe in this nigga's head. And so like people die, and like Daniel has been very close to death, especially in this book. Listen, Kildar's parents was putting in work on Daniel. Daniel ain't have a shot, not a shot in hell to beat them. It was bad for Daniel in the fourth book. It was not looking good for him. And I do enjoy that it feels like there are stakes in these books, that Daniel could die, that the earth could end. And I think that's what makes this series good, and why I like this book so much, because it was just nice to see Daniel interact with somebody, because we've had like other humans in these books, and in this book, and this confusing. I'm not going to get into that. Maybe if you guys want to talk about it in the comment section below, I can, but we're not going to talk about it here. But Kildar was just so refreshing, because I think the only nice aliens we've seen had been Daniel and his race, and it felt like every other race of aliens was just some bad guy. So it was nice to see Kildar be so vastly different even from his parents, and I feel like that was just nice to see in this book. Now, does this series hold up? Yes and no. Some of the technology in these books, because I think the first book is from like 2008, it is very dated and of its time, and like the conversations on like too much technology and video games are bad are definitely like late 2000s conversations. So in that regards, they don't hold up. But just as books, as a 23-year-old, I actually like, once like I put it in my head, these are books meant for kids, I started really enjoying the series, and I started like flying through these books, because at first, I can't lie to you, it was really hard for me to start this book. It was so difficult, but then I was working 12-hour shifts, so I needed something to like help the time go, and that's when I was able to like fly through these books. I was flying again. I read all 6 in a week, right? So once I kind of put it in my mind that like this is not going to be a masterpiece, it's for children, right? Now there are some books meant for children that are masterpieces, but like I'm fully aware this is just like, it's about alien hunting, all right? It's about a boy who's like 15 who like goes around the world fighting aliens. It's, like, come on. Once I put that in my head, I definitely started really enjoying these books. And I would definitely recommend this for young kids to read. I feel like this is good media for children. I do. And I fully understand like why I liked this book so much as a kid, because again, I think I only had the first two, so I never really got to read the last parts of the series. So that was actually new to me. Like, this is my nostalgia, but like the rest of the series, I didn't get them because books are expensive. Like, buying books is not cheap, and at that time, like, I didn't have money to like waste on books. So like these two books are my nostalgia, and like the last like four were like a first time read for me, and I enjoyed them. Like, I really, really did. And I would definitely recommend these books to like give to like your nieces and nephews and like your kids. This was good. This is a fun time, a good series to read. So that's it for me and the Daniel X series. What do you guys think about this book series? Did you read them when you were a kid? After watching this video, do you want to read them now? And what was your favorite book series when you were a tween? And do you think now at your big age, would you want to reread that series? Or are you like, no, that was definitely a product of like my tween years and I don't need to go back? And the song of the day for today is Coconut Oil by Kirby. She actually dropped a whole like little EP that is so good. You guys should definitely check her out. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you would like to see more content from me over on my Patreon, I definitely recommend going over there. This video has been up for a couple of days, as well as my Will and Jada video and a Patreon exclusive video as well. So, see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.